What's up, Suckles? It's me. I am doing my little nutrition series that I told you guys about. And with me today, because I don't know shit about nutrition, is Coach Dre Williams. He is a health, wellness, and nutrition coach. If you saw me looking away, that's because I had to write it down because there was like 3 things there and that was a bit much for me. But he is an amazing person. He's great. He works with actually some close friends of mine who have ADHD. And instead of me speaking on something that I don't know anything about, I felt that Dre would be a much better source of knowledge. So, Dre, let's get started with an introduction. Tell us who you are, what you focus on, what you do, all that good stuff.
All right. Well, because we're all big on knowing folks' background or education, my background, I've been in the fitness, health, and wellness industry for 20 plus years. I have my master's in human health kinetics, a bachelor's in exercise science, and I have a bachelor's in sports nutrition. A lot of folks in my time of being in the fitness industry have said, sports nutrition is not relatable to general public. And I've always argued that it is, because we all want to do something that's outside of our norm, physically wise, whether it's trying to balance our energy or go run a marathon. Like, there's ways to eat that's going to be sustainable and make sure that you can do that appropriately without injury. And that's where I come in and help folks with their fitness programs and stuff. And I've worked as a high school football coach. I've worked with some NFL players. I currently work with some baseball players. And then what I really hang my hat on at the end of the day is being able to help general public overcome fears of the fitness industry and really kind of take power back and work towards a sustainable program. I'm not big on weight loss, even though that ends up being one of the beautiful side byproducts of what we do. I'm big on helping folks with a sustainable plan, something that's going to help them feel good, something that's going to help them focus, and something that they can see themselves doing for years on end. And with that, I also teach them how to make the necessary adjustments when you stop seeing or feeling the results. So that's me. I have a really different approach to fitness and nutrition that other trainers kind of either can get with or really can't. They just are like, nope. But like I said, been doing this 20 years. So there's some adaptability that has to happen to be able to help folks to be able to stay in the industry that long.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Like, you talked about focus, the idea of focusing on anything for 20 years. Right. There has to be a lot of knowledge that comes with that, because I couldn't imagine it. And, you and I have actually talked a little bit before this. And what I really loved about that was that you kind of have this general approach to nutrition that can be applied to just about anyone. And one of the things that you actually brought up was the focused aspect. And we talked about focus, and we also talked about energy, which is a problem for some of us, right? And you kind of talked about a lot of those kind of general tips that a lot of us aren't told, or that we don't take into account, because let's face it, the productivity community and the health community, a lot of them don't really think about those outliers like us. So that was one of the things I really appreciated about you. Yeah. And if you wouldn't mind, of course, if you wouldn't mind, would you mind like going into that a little bit? Like what, generally when people come to you and they're like, hey, I can't focus, or I have a lot of energy issues, or things like that, like what do you generally tend to suggest?
Well, first, whenever somebody comes to me and lets me know that they're having some energy issues, and the first thing I ask her is, have you kept track of your nutrition? Like, do you have a log? Do you have a diary where we know what you're getting in? And if the answer is no, then typically I recommend that they either download the MyFitness app or Lose It app. And it's a great, easy way to keep track of your food. So then we could actually look at what's going on. Your food doesn't lie. We can lie about what we eat. So, and I always make sure folks understand that, if you don't tell me, that doesn't help you. But our food doesn't lie in regards to if you have any kind of chemical imbalances, if you have ADHD, if you have a thyroid issue, if you're eating in a manner that's not conducive towards balancing out those attributes, then it's going to really get exacerbated. You're going to feel it big time. So first things first is, are you writing down what you're eating so that we know what you're getting in? Now, do you have to do that every day forever and ever? Amen. No, because that's not sustainable. For me, I have I have self-diagnosed ADHD, where it's like I cannot focus on something longer than 7 days. 7 days is the max I can do, which is pretty impressive. My wife laughs because when we have discussions or talk about things, like it's in one ear out the next. Fitness has been something that has been a mainstay. It helps balance me, so I do it a lot. But when it comes to general topics, and probably even in this recording, I'll probably be all over the place. But trying to find that balance is key.
It's
right.
It's a roller coaster. It's gonna. Who knows?
Exactly.
It's gonna go. Who knows?
It's like, stay with me. We'll come back around. So, but when it comes to understanding food, we also now, after you've had that log and you're able to keep track of it, we look back and say, see, I'm eating healthy. I'm eating things that are, Diet Coke, or I'm eating no carbs and this and that. And it's like, then I try to educate folks on the fact that you cannot go based off of the title that's on the food that you've grabbed, because their job is to sell it to you and your job is to consume it. So we have to try to find ways that are going to help educate you on what you should be eating. So that's step 2, making sure they understand the food industry is out to get you, because we can be addicted to food at such a high rate, and they find ways to chemically enhance things so that it does hijack the hippocampus so that we are addicted to it. So that's step 2. Understanding the food industry is not your friend. And then step 3 is going into the supermarket and understanding where you shop from. If you shop from the outside, and think of the grocery store as like a cell, right? The outside is the most living aspect of this particular cell. Now, it's not the case with all cells, but with this cell, that's how it is. Living organisms are on the outside, dead organisms on the inside, right? So it's like a backward cell. So when we go inside, you have cereals, you have pastas, things that have been processed and essentially killed. The nutrition value of it is very low unless they've chemically added something to it. Things around the outside, such as your fruits, vegetables, even dairy product, if you can consume dairy product, those are on the outside. Those are things that have a living microbiome that can actually help you. So understanding where to shop from is the next step. And like I said, I'm completely different than most coaches, because most coaches would just come straight and be like, well, then I want you to eat 1,300 calories and I want you to try to go keto, and I want you, whereas first I'm trying to educate folks on what, why, and where to get your food. So once we have those 3 foundational pieces, the tripod of your nutrition, then we could start making adjustments. So you know what you're getting, you know that the food industry is out to get you, and you know that when we look back at what you're getting, most of that food's on the inside of the store. So now we need to start branching out to the outside. Awesome. And then we go ahead and segue into the proper macronutrient intake. Everybody's different. Even if I had somebody that was identical build to me, the manner in which they go through their day, they're going to use their macronutrients differently. Right? And me throwing out macronutrients, most people don't know what they are. So macronutrients, and for anybody listening, grab a pen or a pencil. It's protein, fats, and carbohydrates. Now, here's something they don't tell you. Carbohydrates, they have a subcategory. Okay, just like fats have a subcategory. So we know fats have a subcategory. There's saturated and unsaturated fats. They don't tell you that carbohydrates have a subcategory. You have complex carbs, you have simple carbs, and you have your grains, and you have your fruits, and you have your vegetables. The carbohydrates, when they get broken down in the system, they get broken down into glucose. So the assumption is that it's all the same. How it uses the energy to break down to that is totally different. So if you're consuming cereals, granola, and all sorts of stuff, your body's actually using more energy to break down energy. So when you feel lethargic, if you look back at your food, more times than not, it's grain oriented, or it has some sort of oats. So oats are something that it's like, yeah, within moderation. But fruits and vegetables, if you're lacking in fruits and vegetables, well, then you're going to be lacking in your energy, right?
Interesting.
Now, a lot of times the argument that I get is, well, I drink juice, or I'm a juicer, right? Well, there's a podcast I listened to a long while ago. I can't remember exactly who it was. If I remember, I'll send you over the information. But the gentleman says, imagine taking 8 apples, which is about how much it takes to make about 6 ounces to 8 ounces of juice. Imagine taking 8 apples and in 15 seconds eating all of them right then and there. He said, you're doing that faster by drinking
is
the
what
juice,
that sounds like.
right?
That sounds terrible. Yeah.
Exactly. Now imagine if if we take the time constraint out of it, imagine eating 8 apples in one sitting. I couldn't do it after one apple, because apples have fiber in it that make us feel satiated.
I was about to say, doesn't that also kind of take away the fiber in an apple? Like I'm not obviously I don't do what you do, but like there's fiber in the skin and the flesh, right? So like if you're just doing the juice, you're losing the fiber in that.
You're losing a pretty significant amount of fiber. So you're getting some nutrients that you may not have gotten otherwise because of the manner in which it's squeezed out and processed, and it changes the structure of it. But you're also losing certain aspects. So it's like, in the end, like real food, live food is the best thing for you. If it has a shelf life that's less than a week, or at least in a 7-day window, that's probably more ideal for you to eat than something that can last, from today until September. If it's lasting that long, it's got some preservatives in there, and then that's going to in turn be absorbed by your body. Our body is like the most absorbable, adaptable machinery that mankind has not been able to duplicate. We don't know why some people are affected by nutrition differently than others. Like my brother and I, same dad, same mom, same upbringing, but his body assimilates protein at a ridiculous rate, whereas mine, I'm able to eat ridiculous amounts of carbohydrates and not see major fluctuations in my weight. Whereas if he ate like I did, he would balloon up in a heartbeat. But if I ate like he did, I would have a hard time focusing, and I would like be lethargic. And I've actually tested, I've bumped my protein up like him. So it's a matter of finding that
protein has actually hurt your focus.
For me, it has. So it's one of those things where you have to find that balance. Now, protein, if we come back to like the macronutrient talk, protein, think of it like a giant log on a fire, right? So that's going to maintain that particular flame as long as it possibly can, as long as it's still there, right? Kettling is like your sugar, your carbohydrates and stuff like that. And then that medium fire log, that's your fat cells, right? So we want to try to make sure we have a nice balance of that. Some folks can consume a larger log of protein than others, but it's a matter of trying to find out what that balance is. It's like we're not, when humans are created, it's not like creating a car, where a car, if you have, a red Toyota Prius and a blue Toyota Prius, well, they still have the same gas tank. They still consume the same exact gas, and they process things the same. You can assume what's going to happen on the blue Prius is going to happen on the red Prius if you drive them exactly the same. Whereas if you have two humans, even identical twins, there's identical twins where one's overweight and one's not. It's because at some point their lifestyles ventured differently. And also, even though everything's identical, the manner in which their body's processing these micronutrients and macronutrients is different because of their lifestyles. If one ventured towards video gaming and one ventured towards sports, it doesn't mean the one that went towards video gaming doesn't have the potential capacity to be an athlete. They just lack it at this particular time because nurture has taken over nature. And now their body's assimilating specific things in a different way than, say, their twin.
Got it. So
now, can they get it back? Yeah, they can get it back. It's just a matter of like working and retraining their body and
retraining their brain, their body and their mind.
Yeah.
So my question would be this, and I'm somewhat asking this selfishly because I also have energy problems. How does one test these things to figure out what their body uses and doesn't use, and how they use it, and how it affects their energy and their focus? And how do they make sure that they accurately test that?
So there's two ways. I'm going to tell you the more difficult, more hands-on way, and then the really easy way. Okay. So the more difficult, more hands-on way. And the reason why it's difficult is because it does require work. It requires paying attention to what's going on. Now, if you're somebody that suffers from ADHD, it's taking notes. So you have a journal, you have something to fall back on. Because I know for a fact with me, how if I don't take notes on how I'm eating, I'm abnormal. I can eat the same thing every day forever and ever, amen. And when I make changes, I make sure I start taking notes so I can see what those changes do to my body, my energy, and everything. Is that going to be the case for everybody? No. I would recommend taking the best notes you can. Like if, say, for example, if you're like, today, I'm going to start a 7-day trial of eating more fruits and vegetables, well, then try to have at least 4 days of some pretty solid notes. It doesn't have to be consecutive. It could be spaced. So, and even set an alarm on your phone. Be like, okay, so I'm starting on Monday. So that means on Wednesday, I need to take note, how is my energy? How is my sleep? How's my mood? Doing these basic check-ins. And with my clients, I have a daily check-in chart. They can do it daily, which is what I recommend, so that we can get the best track of how their body's functioning. Or they can do it bi-daily. They can do it once a week. Either way, the goal is to get this data so that we know where you're trending with your nutrition and your activity.
Okay, so I'm going to interrupt real quick just for anybody who's hearing this. If you're like, I want to do that, but I don't really know how, a really, really good way to do this is to actually, and if you've been following me for any amount of time, you probably know that I like to suggest things like task batching. This would be a task batching situation where if you can get yourself used to connecting it to something that you have to do, eating, while you're eating, you connect it to while you're eating, or connect it to whatever you do after you eat, eventually your body is going to just already be used to doing that. So don't worry about necessarily remembering. You can set the alarms, as Coach Dre said, that's still fine. But if you're like, I have gotten to the point where I ignore all of my phone alarms, or what is this, 2010, I never turn on the sound on my phone, that's fine. So then in that case, what you want to do is you want to, at least for the first couple of times, maybe set an alarm or do something to remind you to connect it to the meal. So then while you're eating, pull out your journal or your phone, your notes app, if that's what you would like to do, since you always have your phone in your hands probably anyway. Go ahead and make sure that while you're eating, you are writing down what you've eaten. Do that a couple times, and eventually your body is going to be used to doing that as a connection to your meal. So don't, that is also a possibility if you don't want to go the alarm route. Well, please.
That's one of my biggest recommendations with clients that have a hard time logging food. When you sit down, because normally the case is, well, I wait till the end of the day and then I forget certain things. Then I tell them, when you sit down, just make it a habit to break out your phone. If you're at a restaurant, okay, I'm going to order X, Y, and Z. And you put that right into the app and it calculates it for you.
That's totally, that's a very common ADHD thing. We also sometimes focus with struggle with brushing teeth, for example, or showering. So one of the things that I tend to suggest is connecting that with something that you're already going to be doing that morning, or something that you really like. Sometimes trying to connect it with things that you tend to already do, or something that you already want to do, tends to make it so that just kind of winds up getting dragged along like a portion of a train. So that's just, but that's an awesome suggestion. And that's the hard version, right? But you said that there's an easy version. Okay.
Yep, that's the hard version. That's where, that's where you're able to kind of do trial and error. So it's like, okay, this 7 days, my energy was still not great. Okay, I'm going to just go back to what I'm comfortable with for a little bit. And then, come back to it, have something that reminds you, okay, I'm going to try it again, and I'm going to make these changes. I'm going to add. So it's this trial and error. And this is where I recommend having somebody that's like coaching you and helping you and keeping you accountable, because of the fact that it's very easy in our day to day, whether you do suffer from ADHD or not. It's difficult in our day to day because we have so many distractions, so much stimulation, that it's easy to just go back into our normal routine, because in the end, the human body is trying to find, it's always adapting, and it's trying to find the path of least resistance. If you're going upstream, uphill, guess what? Your body's going to get tired. It's going to be like, just lay down and flow with the water, right?
Give it up. Yeah.
We have to find a way to work our way to the bank and be able to like find some flat ground and work. So, and the best way to do that is having somebody that's there to coach you and help you along the way. If you've never done this and you don't know how to do it, this podcast is great to at least shed some light on the fact that there are some methods out there, whether it's me or another coach or yourself. Find somebody that's going to be able to help hold you accountable towards those changes. Because then, say Wednesday hits and you completely forgot that you're trying this new nutrition fad or nutrition focus or something, you get a text message reminder, hey, how's it going? Oh, that's right. Right?
Whoops. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
Exactly.
my reminder is my wife, because she's just like, you're not supposed to have tomatoes. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right.
All right. Yeah. Oops.
So
yeah.
now the easy way, it's a test. There's a number of different tests out there that can test you on a cellular level on what you should and shouldn't be eating. The one that I recently partnered up with, because I researched them and I found that this one was the most accurate and the most robust in regards to really getting the information. So there's two different types. They can do a waist test and then also a blood and waist test. So it tests your gut health, and then it also tests your health at a cellular level. And what that does is now they're able to tell you what your superfoods are. These are things that are going to give you that boost of energy, things that you should stay away from. Now, if we're talking meat, just as a question to you, what meat would you think I'm supposed to eat at a high rate, and what should I stay away from? Just a guess.
All right, we're gonna show how much of an idiot Ariana is today. Got it.
No!
Okay, so I would guess, because it is pretty heavy in, I would think anyway, protein and iron, I would say red meat would be the best. And the one that you should stay away from would be, oh God. What's a meat that's really bad? Pork? I don't even know why
I felt like I sent that to you.
Really?
Because that was the norm. That was what I was trained to, like, hey, red meat 2 to 3 times a week. If you're training for a sport, 2 times a week if you're not, right?
Yeah.
Have fish once a week. Stay away from pork because of the fact that it releases an extreme amount of cortisol in the system when they're butchered and whatnot. If you're a vegetarian, I apologize for you having to hear this conversation. But it's one of those things where it's like, these were the common knowledge. Well, I get this test. I'm supposed to stay away from all red meat, whether it's lean, 80-20, grass-fed, grass-finished, doesn't matter. Red meat on a cellular level runs havoc in my system. So me being the person I am, I'm like, well, I'm going to test this out now. So
I would have done the exact same thing. I'm glad you're not I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Because I love, oh yeah, and we've been doing smash burgers and stuff. I'm like, I'm going to test this out then. I'm going to smash burgers, see how it does. And it does. It tears, it makes it, I get bloated. I have joint aches for at least 2 days after consuming it. And I even varied the level, like, okay, so if I have just a little bit, 1 serving, okay, well, if I overdo it and indulge and I have 3 or 4 servings, like what is my window? And every single time, didn't matter how much I consumed, the next day or 2 days, I was a hot mess.
Like crap.
So I was like, okay, so the foods that I'm supposed to consume, pork is actually considered my consume and enjoy, which I was happy about that because I do like bacon.
Yeah, you're like, all right, fine, bacon, got it.
Cool.
Good. Yeah.
Poultry, so chicken, turkey. So those are things that I definitely should be consuming. And then fish, it was varied. So like I'm supposed to stay away from salmon, but tuna is okay. And albacore is okay.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, so albacore is just another form of tuna. So I'm like, cool. So I can do certain fish, but it allowed me to see that. And then pineapples like is one of my superfoods. Pistachios is a superfood, but peanuts, no, not at all. Right.
Right.
So I'm able to find these out. And I was around the time, actually about a couple of weeks before we had talked, my energy was fluctuating. And then I did this test and I got my results back and I started kind of really toying with it. And I'm finding that if I wake up in the morning, coffee is actually one of my superfoods.
Oh, nice.
I'm
Lucky
stoked
you.
about that. I'm so addicted to coffee. And then I have a whey protein that's a pea protein, and I mix that all in with my coffee, and that's my morning. And my energy is boosted. My morning snack is either watermelon, pineapples, or some sort of fruit that really boosts. And my energy level has been sustained through the day. My focus is actually way more intense, like to the point where my wife's like, "I liked you better when you forgot things a lot." And I normally have a pretty good memory, but like short-term memory is just really bad. And then it got to the point where my workouts were great, and then I was getting consistent sleep. So
and what is this
it
company
was
called?
It's called Viome. So
Viome.
I'll send you the information.
Yes,
Yeah,
you need to send
Viome.
me the link. You guys, we're gonna have Coach Dre's link to this company. I think I'm probably gonna be paying for this myself if I can figure out a way to get them a waste and blood sample from Costa Rica, because that sounds like something I need to be doing. But yeah,
it's great. They're international. The blood test. Funny story about that. So they give you a thing that you poke your hand. Now the little kid in me is like, well, what is this? So I pulled it apart. It's not a needle. It's like this little blade. This might be deterring a lot of folks, but it basically
now you've scared away like half of the people who are listening. Great job. Great job.
So basically just like pokes and draws blood, and then you squeeze some blood into little things. Well, like my wife had to do it, and her blood was drying up quick. So she's got a really good immune system, well, kind of, that really helps like block anything from coming in. Whereas mine, I was like squeeze, drip, 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 drip. An hour later, it's like, I'm still bleeding. And she's like, I hate you. It took her like 2 hours to just get 3 of these little vials filled up. Whereas mine, I was like, boom, boom. But I couldn't stab myself. I had to give her the thing, and I was like, okay, on the count of 3, and don't mess around. And before I could finish, don't mess around, she already stabbed me. I was like, ah.
She's my kind of woman. I like that. Can you kind of elaborate on how you looked at your results and decided on how to figure out how to spread that out through the day and what should be used when?
Yeah. So this test not only tells you what you should eat, it also gives you a breakdown on your supplements, and then it also gives you a breakdown as far as like your cellular health and whatnot. So like at the age of 40, my cellular health is at 35 years old, and then also like my immune system is pretty good and stuff like that. So it's really cool. But then what I was able to do was I was able to go ahead and kind of break down when I know I consume the most food. Now that comes back to logging your food. So that comes back to like, okay, when I eat, I just had a huge gap in my day. I'm also not a really big breakfast person. So knowing yourself and what you like and setting up your structure or your day accordingly. So intermittent fasting, I'm not one to push it on people, but typically we already do some form of intermittent fasting. Mm-hmm. So what I always recommend to folks is let's find a way to structure it so you're doing it with a purpose. So instead of, oh, I just had my coffee that's about 90 calories in the morning, and then I don't eat anything until say 1. Well, instead of doing coffee, why don't we do water? You know, and then now we're doing a purposeful intermittent fasting, and then 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock hits, you've done your 8 and 16 fasting, and now you have your first meal at 1, right? Oftentimes, folks that are either entrepreneurs, as you had mentioned to me previously, suffers or working with ADHD, or folks that have other ailments that prevent them from getting triggered to being hungry. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can go all day, and then it's once you snap at somebody, like for example, I had a 85-year-old cancer patient client that I yelled at one time. I was like, I need to go get something to eat. Like, I'm hangry right now. I'm sorry. Like, hangry is a thing.
This isn't me. This is the lack of food talking right now.
Right? It's like, it's a real thing. So once you're able to get an idea of your time frame, then you're able to really condense it and really put a good squeeze on like when you're going to get your calorie intake in, but then also your activities. If you are somebody that works a traditional 9 to 5, well, waiting until noon may not be the ideal thing for you to try to eat. So adjusting your time frames of when you're getting your food in, and then once again, it also comes back to kind of like the batch tasking. So if you know you're going to have coffee, add a task of getting some sort of fruit or something, some sort of protein for your breakfast. What that is, it really depends on, kind of what your superfood would be or what brings you or gives you that energy. If oatmeal makes you feel lethargic and terrible, well, then stop eating oatmeal for the last 8 years. You know what I mean? So these are things like a lot of folks would be like, my go-to is eggs, bacon, and toast, but I feel like crap right after I eat it.
Well, then one of those three is not working out for you. Yeah,
exactly. So why are we doing that combination every day? I mean, but then again, we are in the society or the world where it's like, on a pack of cigarettes, it says this is going to kill you, and people still smoke. So it's
exactly. So how long, if we take the hard way, if they choose not to do the VIO test, how long should they do this on and off testing before they should expect to have pretty fair results as to what is their superfood and what's the food they should be avoiding?
Typically, it takes about whatever you've eaten today, you won't technically feel the effects of it for 3 days.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's like it's a 3-day window for your cells to truly absorb and get that. Like you will feel you'll feel better, you feel satiated, so you'll feel that immediately. Your muscles can get some rebuild and some replenishment from the carbohydrates and the glucose, and like at night you rebuild, but you won't feel true like cellular like energy change for about a 2 to 3 day window. So it takes it's a process to get through the entire
system. So you're probably talking about a few months here, like
so like with a lot of my clients, it's typically the first 3 to 4 months is us getting a feel for what's going to be ideal for them. Okay. Like the first 2 to 3 weeks, whatever they're eating, I kick their butt with their workouts, and if their energy steadily is going down, then I'm like, okay, workouts are staying. We're level those out. Now we're going to start diving into nutrition. And I don't recommend doing a complete overhaul. That's too much stress on the body.
It is. It's too much stress. It's too much to keep track of for
exactly
like ours. Yeah, for sure.
Like find one meal that is your favorite meal and take one item in there and change it. So it's like if my go-to meal every night is like some sort of pasta and salad, and then I always have a dessert. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, well, we know sugar is bad. Like whether the food industry is lying to us or whatever and giving us false information, we inherently know sugar is not great for us.
Yeah.
So maybe I take that dessert and I don't have that, and I add fruit. Like I do like a natural sugar, something that's like innately made for my body. Okay. So now I make that change. And I'm like, okay, my body's feeling a little bit different. I could feel a difference. I'm seeing a difference. And then I can go ahead and say, okay, so now let's go ahead. I still really love my pasta stuff, so I'm not going to touch that. Let's look at the salad. I put like almost 2 cups of dressing on a half a cup of salad. So maybe I should cut back on my dressing. You know what I mean? So making small changes that can lead towards really big results in the end. If we make big changes, typically it's not sustainable. And typically we're going to have the FOMO. So we're going to have this fear of missing out. Our inner child's going to rebel, and we're going to be like, F that, I'm an adult, I can do what I want. Right? All we are is just unsupervised children walking around with
we're pretty much all just a bunch of toddlers. Yeah. No, I mean,
exactly.
It's funny. That's what happened to me. I decided that I was going to eat clean for 3 months straight, and I did it 3 months, and then I was still in a band.
But what happened right at the end of the 3 months?
Okay, but that's where I was going, is at the end of those 3 months, I was still in a band, and I decided that I was going to go with my bandmates to a bar, right? And they ordered these chili cheese fries. And I ate those chili cheese fries, and literally 5 minutes later, I had to run to the bathroom and I was there for so long that they had to send one of my bandmates' girlfriends in to come
like,
find me. It was
good.
It was so bad. It was so bad. You can't,
Yeah.
If you're not going to sustain it, don't do it. That's all I can say.
Yeah. And that falls back on the addiction, right? Because 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days, you've now really exercised the demon, so to speak, of these foods.
Yep.
Your body doesn't need them anymore. And your
Yep.
body triggers that because your hippocampus and your frontal lobe is like, oh, you know what? We're not getting this feel good. We need that, right? So it's like with kids, they get candy and suddenly they need more candy. And then it's more candy. It's constantly compounding because their brain is releasing this dopamine that feels good. And the only way we can get that release to that feel good state again is by ramping it up again. Right. So that's why our sugar cereals have increased their sugar content. That's why at the end of 3 months, you're like, yeah, I'll have a couple of those. Right. So it's one of those,
and then it ends badly. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly why.
And then that's where like almost 80% of folks that start some sort of nutrition program fail. And it's not necessarily fail. What you did is you learned at the end of a 3-month clean eating cycle, you probably shouldn't go to cheesy fries as
right
like
after.
one of those.
Exactly.
So
it's about moderation, right? It's about making sure that if you're going to go crazy, you either eat like 3 chili cheese fries and don't eat anymore, or maybe don't jump straight to chili cheese fries.
And the thing that's crazy is like, if you didn't have that, like, expelling moment, then maybe
that's a really nice way of saying that. Thank you.
Over 20 years of being in it, I could find really nice ways. No, but you would have been able, if you didn't have that moment, you probably would have been able to feel a complete dramatic decrease in energy right after eating that. Because eating clean, if you're doing a really consistent routine of it, your body's going to get to this level where it's like, oh, this is pretty good. And then you do that, and it's like, it's not even subtle. It's like the roller coaster drop. It's like tick, 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 boom. And you're like, yeah.
It was a big drop. It was a big drop.
I don't know. So it is important to that sustainability factor. It's like I said earlier with keto, paleo, all these nutrition fads, they're fads because of the fact that they don't last. And they're diets because something in that nutrition plan, something has to die. You're going to have to give something up. And I'm really big on not forcing people to give things up. So I really believe in like the portion sizes for your body are based off of your hand. So all of the personalized apps that I give folks, it comes with a diagram that shows portion sizes based off of your hand size. My wife should not eat the same amount of protein that I eat because her body's different. Now, if you ball your hand up into a fist, this is the size of your stomach before anything is put into it. Now imagine, me in college, I would eat a full large pepperoni pizza and I would shove that into the size of this fist. Granted, the sack of the stomach can expand, but it forces it to do more than it should, more than it's designed to. And then what happens is we start to store this away into fat cells. And then depending on your emotional state when you've consumed that food, emotion is energy that gets stored in those fat cells. And now if you're someone that is working with ADHD or somebody that's working with any other ailments, and then you have this emotional release because you're doing something that's burned that particular energy or moved that energy, you feel it and you don't know why. So I have a lot of times where clients will be in the middle of a workout and start crying, or at the end of a workout just be angry. And it's like, because you just tapped on an energy in your body that you store, and you must have been angry when you stored that. Because the definition of energy is always here. You cannot destroy it, you could only transfer it. So I always recommend to folks when either they're feeling unmotivated, when they're feeling angry, when they're feeling clouded and having a hard time focusing, that's in some way, shape, or form an energy that is now there, and we have to find a way to move it. So moving is the best medicine for that. So get up and walk. if you have the access to be able to get on a bike or do some quick workout, do that. And that's going to allow that energy to move on. And then you can get back into your normal state. That tendency is that suppression. It's like, I'm not supposed to be an angry person. I'm supposed to be loving, or I'm supposed to be understanding. And it's like, even I would say parents are the worst at suppressing stuff, because their kids piss them off. And we're told as a society, you're not allowed to be mad at your child. You can't talk like that to your child. So we swallow it and press it down, and then it comes out somewhere at somebody, right? Because that energy is just waiting. So it's like, I mean, in our house, we are very outspoken. And I tell my kids, you're pissing me off, or you are annoying the crap out of me right now.
I mean, I have no problem in a Black and Hispanic household, so we do the same thing. We don't do any of this like passive aggressive. Can you please pass the salt? We tend to just be like, you're pissing me off right now. Like, do you want to know why? I don't care why you want to know why. Let me tell you why.
Exactly. It's not even like you know what? In this particular, no, we don't do this. No, I need you to leave me alone. Okay, it's like, things like that.
Yeah, that's
so it's like. But it's like, and like I've been known numerous times, and my friends will look at me like I'm crazy. Like my 10-year-old, she is literally a chip off the block. She is me reincarnated as a female. And I'm sorry, as a kid, I was an asshole. And she is every bit much that. And people are like, you can't say that about your daughter. I'm like, I can. She's going to be amazing. Don't get me wrong. She's going to piss a lot of people off along the way because they're not ready for that energy. But she's an asshole. And and they're like, oh, I'm never going to try to change it. But
I put this in a book I wrote some time ago, that like kids are just by nature assholes. Like it's not being mean. It's not saying anything that is it's true. They are, if you were dating somebody who acted like children act, people would be like, why are you still dating that person? Break up with them. This is an abusive relationship.
Yeah, it's because their sense of ego is so here.
And they haven't quite figured out that the world is not a movie written about them yet. They haven't figured that out. It takes them time to figure that out. So we got off topic.
Way off topic. Yep, that's
we
cool.
We only have a little bit of time left. So let's talk about a little bit before we talked about how a lot of us, myself included, today, guys, I just had my own problem where I did not eat enough. A lot of the time we tend to forget to eat. And we tend to, sometimes when we forget to eat, or when we let ourselves get to that end of the road hunger, we'll eat things that we're not supposed to, just because at this point we've waited too long. So
and typically we haven't planned a meal at that time.
We don't, like a lot of us don't plan. That is coming up later, but I'm going to try to do something for you guys about meal planning and stuff like that for ADHD, but we don't generally plan. And because we have that extensive amount of choice, which is a lot for our brains, and we also sometimes tend to hyper-focus, or we have medication or whatever that kind of covers up the fact that we're hungry, we don't tend to eat. And if we do eat, when we get to that level of hunger, we tend to eat things that don't make us feel better. So how, when you have somebody who's going through that, how do you generally suggest they proceed?
Typically, when you get to that point, you're at a ravished state and you're going to grab for a large meal. When somebody's in that state, they're in a fasted state, essentially, and they're just not accustomed to dealing with it. What I've told a lot of folks, and what I train a lot of folks to do, is don't go for the big meal. Get a snack.
Okay.
Allow your blood sugar and your body to balance out. And then once you're balanced out, now you can make a conscious decision as far as what you should eat and how much you should eat. Now, typically that snack should be a simple carbohydrate. Now, oftentimes folks, whenever they hear carbohydrate, they automatically think grains. And it's like, even when I say it, my brain sees bread or something.
I thought bread. I did.
Yeah. So simple carbohydrate, meaning apple, pineapple, watermelon, some sort of fruit. Melon is always great. because of the fact that it has some specific enzymes and whatnot that really help the brain. Pineapple's another one. It has a very exponential amount of natural sugars that's going to help boost your metabolism and get you refocused. So those are some things that are going to be really key, like having a serving or 2 servings of that. And then that's not only helping your fiber intake, it's not only helping your fruit intake and your hydration, but now you're actually balancing out your body so that you feel back to normal. Whereas if you don't, then it's like somebody is literally a half a word away from getting their head bitten off, and you don't even know why, and you can't focus on how to get back to where you want to be.
Exactly.
So yeah.
No, that's yeah, been there. This was an amazing talk. I feel like we could go on forever. We're gonna probably have to do this again sometime, but guys, the reason that I wanted to do this call, part of the reason I wanted to do this call with Coach Dre, there were 2 reasons. The first being that I do not feel like ADHD nutrition is talked about enough. And the second being that Coach Dre and I will be working on a referral basis. So if you're working with me and we feel like nutrition is part of the issue, Coach Dre could be one of the people you work with. So if you feel that this is something that,
and vice versa, sorry to interrupt, if you're working with me and you feel like you're having a hard time focusing and you need somebody to reach out to, please reach out to Brianna.
We thank you. We definitely have, we made sure of this before we did this. We have philosophies that overlap on multiple different levels. So you're not going to be getting different treatment from me to him or from him to me. And so if you feel like this is something that you need on his end or on my end, please make sure that you reach out to us. That said, Dre, I will have all of this in the description, but would you mind please also letting people know where they can keep up with you?
Yeah, so I have 2 Instagrams. I have Dre Williams at PDX, and then also MOC Fitness Official. You can't miss it. It's my logo. It's the M with the circle. I'm actually wearing it on the shirt if you're watching this. Yeah. But yeah.
All right. So I will have those links in the description. I will also have the biotest links in the description. I think I'm probably going to actually take that test myself. Dre, this was amazing. Thank you so much. This will not be the last time we talk. Thank you very much, you guys. Drink water, take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video or on the next podcast.